A young female musician, in a land where music and poetry are legally reserved for men, may be the only hope for stopping a devastating plague of blood magic and ending an evil mage's rule in Last Song Before Night. That's the book I'm reviewing on this episode of SFF180. Hello everybody, Thomas here. Thank you for joining me in this new year. Last Song Before Night comes so close to being a brilliant debut that it's heartbreaking. Ilana Myer lures you into her extravagantly mounted epic with the promise of a tale of a rebellion inspired by poetry and led by musicians. But what emerges is just another tropey, mundane quest novel, with stock heroes and villains, and a curious lack of conviction in support of its feminist subtext. Our heroine is Lynn Amaristoth, the daughter of an aristocratic household who has fled her family's abuses and come to the glittering city of Tamrilan. Here, despite strict academy rules limiting the vocations of music and poetry to men, she pursues her musical ambitions. Okay, now, backstory. Long ago, music was once a powerful form of spellcasting, but when blood magic corrupted the practice and led to the spread of a devastating plague, the Red Death, music was stripped of its magical essence, and all poets were required to have their songs approved by the king's closest advisor, the court poet. Now, the story begins as Lynn prepares to enter a song contest held at the home of a wealthy merchant, and to be judged by the king and the current court poet, Nikon Gerard. Now, to everyone's surprise, the party is crashed by Valinir Okun, one of the most famed poets in all the land. Okun scandalizes the gathering by playing a seditious song defying the crown's control over music and poetry, and exhorting poets to seek the path that will restore the lost enchantments. Now, earlier that same evening, Okun met Lynn at the same party, and he revealed to her that the Red Plague is returning, and that in his travels, visions revealed to him that Lynn will have a crucial role to play in rediscovering the path and defeating evil. And in this way, the Obi-Wan-Luke mentor relationship, or if you prefer, the Frodo-Gandalf mentor relationship between Okun and Lynn is established. Now, Lynn is joined in her quest by Darian Aldemore, a very dashing and wildly popular Academy student who that night had every intention and every expectation of winning the song contest before he was betrayed by a close friend. Okay, so if Valinir Okun is Obi-Wan, then it will come as no surprise to you that Nikon Gerard is Vader, the very blood magician responsible for the resurgence of the plague. Okay, now don't worry, this is not exactly a massive spoiler. Now, Gerard pulls out all the stops to hinder Lynn and Darian, but to be honest, the story kind of gets to them before he does. Once the action shifts from the pageantry of Tamrilan to a series of boilerplate, epic fantasy rural towns and small, rough taverns, it all just feels like it's ticking off boxes. The city of Tamrilan is vividly realized, especially in nighttime street scenes where the lights and sounds of a festival just seem to come alive in your mind. And Myer's characters, for the most part, are all quite likable. But likable doesn't necessarily translate to deep. Lynn's development is especially frustrating because she is given the thinnest basis for her chosen one archetype. It's all just Okun's vision, whatever that was. It is disappointing, to put it mildly, to see a female protagonist having to lean so heavily upon the instructions as well as the personal sacrifices of the male characters in order for her to fulfill her destiny. And in a book that so clearly wants its villains' acts of villainy to be representative of the general oppression of women, it is disappointing to see that kind of take a back seat in favor of an off-the-shelf good versus evil epic fantasy climax. Myer's villains fare even worse. Nikon Gerard is just Dark Lord Genericus, and as for Ray and Amaristoth, Lynn's abusive, sociopathically emo brother, well, if your bad guy's defining resume item is that he beats women, well, that's not character development, that's just button mashing. And there is another featured supporting character, Marilla, whose prominence in the story I'm still trying to puzzle out. There are loads of characters vying for your attention here, but Last Song Before Night just does not have the solidity of narrative to support all of these viewpoints and their subplots. And so there are pacing problems, as so many threaded storylines compete for equal time. It all would have felt more focused if Lynn's viewpoint had been a lot stronger and centered. Okay, so allow me to end this review with some positives. it is impossible not to see the raw talent in Ilana C. Myer. She has a natural flair for making her characters very appealing, which will only improve once she gets past her inclination to slot them all into cliched roles. And in Tamrilan, she created the sort of city that really made me wish I could spend more time there. You know, that I could have breathed in the atmosphere of its mansions and its markets and its crowded streets. Ilana Myer is a writer who is going places, and while Last Song Before Night sounds a few too many wrong notes to work quite as well as it should, it's only a matter of time before she begins to deliver some truly symphonic fantasy. And that is all I have time for on this episode of SFF180. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, the most important thing, these are reviews. You're not always going to agree with me, but if you enjoyed watching, please leave a like, share this video far and wide with your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe. That is how SFF180 grows as a channel. And until I see all of you next time, happy reading.